That night, we found out just how much she said it.
Oh, that's great. But,
Nice.
this wasn't your first spelling bee, was it?
Nope, third.
Oh, good for you. But,
What is this? You did that.
I have no idea how people actually start these things, so hey! Yeah, I kind of feel no matter how many times I film this, I'm not gonna like it, so we're just gonna give it another go. I filmed this yesterday and I couldn't even bear to edit it, so, and I thought if I can't edit it, who the hell's gonna want to watch it? So here we are. So this week is Mental Health Awareness Week, and I thought I would tell my story with mental health because not many people know it, and also give some tips and tricks of things I've learned which might help people out who are too scared to go to therapy and things like that. Just give them some helpful advice, and if this video even helps one person, then at least I've done my little bit to help. So my story, you ask? Basically, I have suffered with OCD my entire life. And I don't mean in that sense when people are like, oh my god, you opened a packet of crisps upside down, that's so annoying. You're really gonna set my OCD off. Not like that at all. I definitely can joke about it. There's that really, really funny bit in Friends where Joey goes to work with Ross and they meet all his colleagues.
Now, I look around this cafeteria and you know what I see? I see division. Division between people in white coats and people in blue blazers. And I ask myself, my God, why? Now, I say we shed these coats that separate us. And we get to know the people underneath. I'm Ross. I'm divorced and I have a kid.
I'm Joey. I'm an actor. I don't know squat about dinosaurs. I'm Ted, and I just moved here a month ago, and New York really scares me.
All right, there you go.
Yeah, you hang in there, Teddy.
I'm Andrew, and I didn't pay for this pair.
Okay, good for you.
I'm Rhonda, and these aren't real.
Wow, Rhonda.
I'm Scott,
Yeah, okay, Scott.
and I need to flip the light switch on and off 17 times before I leave a room or my family will die.
I laugh at that scene every single time because the feeling is so true and they like captured it perfectly in a joke. So it can be funny, it does seem ridiculous, but it is very, very hard to cope with sometimes. There's different types of OCD. There's people who like to obsessively clean. There is people who like to repeat numbers in their heads over and over again, or people who have to check things all the time. I personally am a checker. I will check things over and over and over again until it feels right. And I recently learned that it's never going to feel right. I'm just going to keep doing it and I'm going to basically ruin my day. This was the pattern I was going through. I was ruining my sleep schedule. I was really stressed out in the day. I was really emotional, and it generally had an effect on my entire life. And it still does to a certain extent, but nowhere near as bad because I've got more of a handle on it now. So I remember the first time I can think of me realising something was different was when I was about 7. I remember telling my mum if I had to, say for example, I banged my hand on the side of something, I'd have to bang my other hand to make myself feel even. And I'm fully aware that to anybody who doesn't have OCD, this is going to sound completely crazy. But that is another good thing about therapy, is it makes you feel like you're not alone, because lots of people do things like this. And if you type this in onto YouTube and you're looking for answers, then maybe we have something in common. So that was the first thing I was doing. Then as I've gotten older and I've obviously got more stressed out, I pick up new ones all the time. So say for example, I'm always worse when I'm trying to go to sleep. So that's my main time to do it. So for example, I'll check my wardrobe, I'll check under my bed, I'll check the corners of my room, I'll check outside just before I can sleep, because I generally don't like being unconscious and out of it for different reasons. But I feel that I do that all the time. It wasn't like I could just do it once. I'd get up out of bed and do it over and over and over again. And in the end, I wasn't going to bed till like 6 a.m. or something stupid. And then it has an effect on your entire life because you're tired throughout the day. I was so emotional all the time because of it. I've nearly been doing this for 22 years now, so I was really far into a routine, which I shouldn't have been, but it's really hard to break out of it because if you don't do it, you don't feel right, you feel uneasy. It's just a bad habit and a pattern that you're used to. And that is mainly the problem with OCD, which stands for Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, is because you're obsessing over doing something and it's a compulsion, it's something you feel you have to do. I used to do lots of other things when I was younger, such as I used to obsess over my skin, which again, I feel like every teenager does that, to be fair. But it's when you obsess over it a little bit too much. Like I would turn barely a spot on my face into a giant crater, which makes it so much worse all over. And again, still do that now to a certain extent. I still have pretty bad skin for my age, so makeup comes in handy. I would do that, and then when I was maybe 13 or something, I would pick the skin on my scalp and make holes all over my hairline. God knows how I have hair. Another thing, you can obsess over it. Some people obsess over pulling their own hair out. It is really quite debilitating and people don't realise how serious it can be. I've never seen anybody share anything to do with OCD on my Facebook before, but somebody shared a video of a man who was trying to read about a poem about his ex-girlfriend, and he couldn't read the sentences without repeating certain words over and over again, and he was really struggling. Kind of made people realise how debilitating it is. It's like he can't even say that sentence without struggling to give in and say certain things over and over again. It really is quite a struggle for many, many people all the time, but I don't think we hear about it enough. So I think this Mental Health Awareness Week is a good time to break the stigma of certain mental health issues, because people do have them, and I especially was always embarrassed. That's why nobody knows that I have this. Only my close family and 2 of my friends and a therapist and a doctor know about it. This is just gonna tell everybody. But I think people shouldn't be embarrassed, and I should not be embarrassed either, because it is something loads of people have and you can't help it. If you're trying to fix the problem, then what's wrong with that? At least you're trying to make an effort to improve yourself or not give in, and try and make every day a little bit easier. Each day is an ongoing battle. I still struggle with it now, but I am so glad I took the steps to make my days better by going to therapy, because I could not be in a better mood nowadays, and compared to how I was 6 months ago, I was like half a human. So definitely improved. And I think if this video helps anybody, I think it would be great if you're too scared to go to therapy and you watch this. Or if you even want to leave me a comment, or if you want to direct message me on social media and ask me a question if you're too embarrassed to say, I will give you the best answer I can. And I will, if you want to see any more of these exercises written down, or if you want me to scan something to you of a way you can help yourself, I'd be more than happy to do that. So it definitely got worse when I went to uni, and because I was more stressed out because I was in a new area, I was terrified to join, and it got worse and worse every single year, and I picked up new ones. So say for example I just checked one thing, by the end of 3rd year I would check 20 things before I went to bed, but not just once, probably 20 times each. So you get lack of sleep. It's not good for 3rd year either. And then I noticed by the time I graduated, the stress wasn't going away. I still did it continuously all the time. And it kind of got to the point, I want to say last September or October maybe, so October 2016, when my parents didn't really have any clue I was doing this, or anybody in my family, because it was kind of like my secret, which is the worst thing you can do, keeping it to yourself. It's definitely better to talk to somebody about it. And I think my mum just made like a passing comment of something before I went out to meet my friend, and said like, why are you so tired? And I basically broke down in tears and told her everything. She said, oh, I think you need some help to get you out of this. So I went to the doctors. They put me on antidepressants, which I personally wouldn't recommend for myself. Maybe they work for other people, but they made me feel absolutely nothing. So I went from being overtired and crying at everything to feeling absolutely nothing. But then in that sense you don't feel happiness either. I felt just an awkward mellow through life, and I didn't enjoy that either. So I only took them for about a month and I was supposed to take them for about 6, but I stopped straight away. I thought what would be a better idea is when they referred me to therapy, I started CBT, so cognitive behavioural therapy, which is when they focus on what the problem is and you try and sort it out step by step. This is what this video is about. I'm just going to tell you some of the things I learned in therapy. It might help you if you're too nervous to go talk to a doctor. It might help you if you're too scared to go to therapy, because I completely get that. I was terrified. Or you just want some useful information, because whenever I was trying to Google things and I didn't want to tell anybody, it's either really scientific and hard to understand, or it's about chemicals in your brain that are different, which is interesting, but it's not really like a cure or a way to help, or none of it's relatable. It's just generally really difficult to understand, or it might not be specific to you. As I said, I don't know much about the cleaning side of OCD, but if you're a checker, then I think some of these things can help you. Or maybe if you do clean obsessively, you can change certain things, these exercises that I learned, and they'll help you out. It's better to give it a go than not to, because for me personally they worked. I think CBT is fantastic. And also I thought it might be nice to see a YouTube video of somebody who actually understands what you're going through, rather than trying to talk to an adult who maybe doesn't understand. Shit, I just broke my folder. This is gonna be a mess. So, exercise 1. So this is something I did at the beginning of every single therapy session. It's just a questionnaire to tell how you're feeling. And it might seem quite tedious and annoying, but then after I went for 10 weeks. After 10 weeks, you look back on your first results and it shows how much you've improved, which is quite a good thing to know. The first questions are about depression. The questions are about whether you have an interest in doing anything, or if you're feeling tired, or if you're overeating, or even some suicidal questions as well, which is important to ask yourself if you have considered it. So thoughts that you'd be better off dead or hurting yourself in some way. And the scale is, not at all is 0, several days is 1, more than half of the days is 2, or nearly every day is 3. So you circle which one applies to you, and then you add up the scores at the end and see what number you are. The second set of questions is about anxiety. So my depression questions, I wasn't very high on the scale, even though I was feeling particularly down just about the whole situation. The anxiety questions, which is the next section, I was giving myself a score of 3 for nearly everything. It was fully. The only thing I didn't give myself a score of 3 for was restless, finding it hard to sit still. And because, to be honest, all I wanted to do was sit there and cry, so I gave myself a 0 for that one, which is occasionally. It was 3s for nearly everything. So I was feeling particularly anxious about everything. Again, therapy has improved me so much from them. The next set of questions is phobia scales. You would rate yourself on whether you avoid social situations because you feel like you're going to embarrass yourself or do something awkward there, or if you worry about having panic attacks, things like that. Give yourself a score. Then at the end, you add all the numbers up and see what you are. If you keep doing this for weeks and weeks and weeks, and you give yourself a score, it might be particularly lower, which is better. Exercise 2 is to set yourself goals. So don't make them really over-exaggerated or something you can't achieve, because then you'll feel bad. For example, if you were trying to lose weight, you wouldn't say, oh, I want to lose 2 stone in 2 weeks. It's because it's not possible. So set yourself achievable goals, so then when you do, it's each milestone, and then they can get higher and higher the further you go on. It's a lot more encouraging than setting yourself something which you know you won't be able to do. Mine was going to bed without checking anything, which was, sounds so simple, but was so difficult for me. And I said I wanted to do it by January, and I still do it sometimes now, and it's May. But I mainly stopped in March. So it took me 2 more months than I wanted. The second one was being able to relax, which again sounds ridiculously simple, but being able to lay down without repetitively thinking something in my head is very, very difficult for me, because part of OCD is intrusive thoughts. So every single time I used to think, oh, I don't want to do that, I don't want to get up and check my wardrobe, it would be the only thing I could think of, and it's like an inner monologue, and you can't really switch your own brain off, as easy as it sounds. Also, reassuring yourself. So something might take absolutely weeks to fix and to make yourself feel better. Don't give up at the first hurdle. If you go backwards and you make a mistake and you check something or you clean something, it's not completely over. Like, you don't have to just give up. You can just try again. And I failed one night, so I'm going to try the next night not to do it. And let me tell you, the feeling of accomplishment you have the first time you don't do a compulsion is the best feeling in the world. I felt superhuman the next day when I woke up and I didn't check anything the night before. It was the best feeling because I knew I could do it without anything bad happening to me. And that's the main problem. So exercise 3. This is the cognitive model of OCD. It originally starts with the first box says trigger, which I personally don't like because I think it sounds really Tumblr. Say for example, this is just one that's been given as an example. So the trigger could be at the park with your family. Then it leads to the intrusive thought, which is intrusive thought of harm coming to my children. Then the interpretation of the intrusive thought is I'm having thoughts of harming my child, maybe I'm a bad mother, or I'm responsible for keeping everyone safe, but this contamination is danger. So again, that would apply to cleaning. Or I'm a bad person and I must be dangerous. So it might be an intrusive thought that comes into your head, which definitely isn't true, but it's kind of like an inner monologue that you can't switch off. It just comes into your head and you think, like, where the hell did that come from? I don't want to think that, because you're just out having fun, but it does come into your head and you can't help it. Then it leads to different things, so it would lead to it's a bad way of handling it, so you'd avoid it, so you'd avoid any reminders of your children. The emotion is fear, disgust and shame, or maybe being irritable with your children just because they're there when they don't know what's going on in your head. Or in the neutralization, so avoidance of any reminders of your children, avoid looking after your own children, or to clean and wash, so obsessively clean yourself before you meet your children or something like that. But this is just an example that they've given. This doesn't apply to me at all and may not apply to you. I'm going to give you an example of myself. My trigger would be, say for example, going to bed and feeling anxious because I've worked myself up because I'm almost scared to go to sleep. The intrusive thought I'll get is, what about if there's somebody in my room? What about if there's something in the wardrobe? Maybe I didn't check it well enough. Interpretation of the intrusive thought is I'll go around and check everything, and I won't do it once, I'll do it 30 times. Not anymore, but used to. Avoidance would be me staying up ridiculously late to avoid going to bed because I knew the check-in would start. Emotion would be feeling really almost embarrassed and ashamed of myself for feeling like I have to check because deep down I know it's stupid and logic is there is nobody in my room, but this is a stupid thing to be doing, but why can't I help it? And generally confused because I couldn't figure out why I wanted to do it either. Neutralization will probably be staying up late or checking, or maybe the next day being ridiculously tired, really irritable, really teary because I was so tired because I'm such lack of sleep. Try and make one of these for yourself. It might help a lot just to see it written out, and then you see, okay, well this is where I'm going wrong, this is what I'm doing, and then it kind of makes you see the logic, seeing it written down, and you're like, I don't need to do this. Exercise 4. I'm not going to read all this to you because it's really long. Basically, how I would describe it is high risk, high reward. For example, because no matter how many times you do it, it's never going to feel right. We've established that. You probably know that already if you're watching this and have OCD. No matter how many times you check, or no matter how many times you clean, if not clean enough, you didn't check enough. This shows you the way that you feel. It would be your anxiety levels. So, say for example, I'm laying in bed, I want to get out of my bed and I want to check something. I'm pretty anxious and I want to do it. I'll check and my anxiety levels go down a bit, but then they'll go back up again because I want to check again. Spending the whole night with my anxiety going up and down, and again I'm not getting any sleep. If I do it a different way, which is higher risk but higher reward, I would then be laying in bed and want to check, hold out and not check, so my anxiety levels will go up, I'll be more worried, I sometimes used to have panic attacks, I would be terrified. And then after a amount of time you think, well, I've survived this long and nothing's happened, maybe I don't have to check. And the longer you hold out, the further your anxiety will drop over time. Feel the need not to do it. Maybe eventually you'll just drift off to sleep. You won't feel the need to do it. So if you hold out, it's scarier, but then the reward is bigger because you think, oh my god, I didn't do it and I'm fine. Does that make any sense? I think this one is quite helpful. It has a different name. It's not called high risk, high reward, but I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me. If I do, I will put it in the description below. So that's an exercise that you would have to physically do. It's not just writing it down and seeing it, which is really, really difficult, and maybe you won't be able to do it first time. It took me, I remember I maybe did it in my 4th week of therapy, and I didn't do it every night, I did it every other night, just so I could at least cope and check sometimes, because if I didn't, I'd just stay up all night anyway, and I'd be in a worse mood the next day, which you didn't think was possible, but it was. Exercise 5. Exercise Exercise 5 is a behavioural experiment. Originally, it's what do you want to do? So mine was checking, or somebody might be cleaning. The first one is, what is the belief to be tested? Mine is, if I go to sleep without checking hidden bits of my room, there'll be somebody in my room or something bad will happen. And I believe that 95% I put. So then you have to write an alternate belief, and I put 90% for this one. It was that if I don't check or something does happen, I'll only have myself to blame. If there was somebody in my room and I avoided checking my wardrobe that night, I'd only have myself to blame because I didn't check, kind of thing, if that makes sense. For example, if it's cleaning, if you catch a cold or you get germs, you'll think, oh, this is my fault because I wasn't clean, this is my fault. You're completely blaming yourself, which is such an unhealthy way of living. The next question is, what experiment could put this belief to the test? So, not check was just mine, just don't do it. It sounds so easy. Then my therapist has written a comment and it says, checking is a safety behaviour that helps to manage anxiety. I know it is difficult, but just try. He only wanted me to try it just one day, which seems so easy. Next question is, what safety behaviours need to be dropped? So I said, I need to stop checking under the bed because I have a divan bed now, but I still check the wardrobes, so I still need to stop doing that. And the next question is, what problems are likely? What do you have to overcome? So you kind of have to estimate what kind of struggles you're going to get into. Therapy isn't about just being like, oh, I'll just get over it, I'll be fine. You know you're going to get into problems. You know that you're going to struggle with it some days and be like, I can't do this. Or, as I said, break a schedule and then be like, crap, now I'm at stage 1 again. But just try again, because you'll pick it up as soon as possible. I don't think anything is likely to happen because it never has. But I still have such a strong feeling that I just want to check. So that was the feeling, that was what I thought I was going to have to overcome. I was going to have to overcome the strong feeling to want to check things. Then, for me, it was the next day, but for you, it might be if you want to clean something, you leave it a couple of hours. You have to write what the outcome is. So my outcome was not looking under the bed, but I still can't even let myself think about it because I want to start looking, or I'll pick up a new habit, like looking in the drawers of my bed before I go to sleep. So, yeah, that's one thing that I feel lots of people do. When you give up one habit, you want to pick up another one. You can't even let yourself give in just a tiny bit because then you'll find something else and then you'll do that for another 22 years. Kind of feel like it's like smoking. So say for example you're trying to give up smoking and you've got a whole week and you think, oh, you know what, it's a Sunday, I deserve this, I'm hungover. And then you have that one cigarette and then you're back to where you started and you'll keep smoking over and over again. So you can't let yourself even just pick up a new one, ever. Because again, you'll just keep it, you'll just keep smoking or checking forever. This one's quite handy because then you see the outcome and you think, you know what, I didn't die, it didn't happen. And then you've done it once, you can do it again. The first time is definitely the hardest, without a doubt. Exercise 6. This is writing down the pros and cons of what you're doing. Again, really simple, something you could do at home, don't even have to go to therapy for. Write down the pros of staying as you are. The pros for me were, helps me fall asleep quicker after checking, allows me to let my guard down, allows me to give in to the intrusive thought of wanting to check. I get reassurance, which enables me to let go of the intrusive thought. So I'm thinking somebody's in my room, I check, realise they're not, and then I've let go of that intrusive thought that somebody's there. Helps me stay in control. Again, really unhealthy form of control, but something people do. People who have bulimia or anorexia sometimes pick it up because they want a form of control in their life and they think, I'm really stressed out, this is what I'm going to grasp onto. The more and more stressed out I get, the more I pick up new OCD things, and that's when I knew I needed help because I was picking up new ones all the time, and eventually everything I was doing was just to get through the day, which isn't a way to live. And it helps me manage my feelings. So I was emotional and tired all the time, so I'd do it, but then I was tired because I was doing it. It's like a really shit repetitive cycle. Then you have to write down the cons of what you're doing and staying as you are. So mine was, it's a bad habit, it's only going to get worse because I've literally witnessed it get worse since I was 7. Ways of dealing with feeling tense. It's an unhelpful routine. I just wanted to be like other people. I want to go to bed without feeling like I need to check everything and run around the house checking things. I just want to close my eyes and go to sleep like 90% of the public do. Which is exactly how I'm sure you're feeling if you want to be able to just keep something messy and you can't do it and everybody else does. It's really frustrating to think I'm not like everybody else, why can't I do this? Then you have to write down the pros of not checking. Mine was, I'd go to bed normally and the feeling behind it after a minute or two would go. So I'd, again, have to wait it out and have to sit through the feeling of wanting to check. But after a while, it would go. I wouldn't feel that way anymore. And then you have to write down the cons. So it would be something I could have avoided if I just checked. Again, living in fear pretty much. And it would mean worrying. So I'd be worrying for a little while. But something that my therapist wrote down in quotes that I said was, I was like, it's just a feeling. None of it is real. It feels so real and the anxiety is real, but the thought that's making you feel that is just a feeling, and you're completely in control of yourself. So don't check something, don't clean something. The more you do it, the easier it definitely gets. Exercise number 7. Do some reading up about it. I got recommended this book. I'm still not through it because, as you can see, it's quite the mouthful. And it's quite difficult to read, I'm not gonna lie, so maybe not this one. But again, if you're looking for the things that I'm reading out, like the exercises, they are all in here. This is pretty much where the therapist got them from. So you can do your own reading. It helps to go to therapy because you can talk it through with somebody and they understand completely what you're saying, and they might relate to you because they've had problems as well. So I definitely would recommend therapy, but if you are too nervous and you feel like it's too soon and you want to go in a while, again, maybe not great putting it off, but if that's generally how you feel, maybe just get a book and read up about it first, because it does definitely help. I got this off Amazon. It was second hand, so I think it was like £2 or something, which is quite good because it is brand new. I'll put a link to this in the description as well. Exercise 8. This is a checking experiment for me. For yourself, it might be cleaning, it might be checking as well, it might be something completely different. It's different for everybody. Mine was day 1. Check everything lots of times, so even more times than I wanted to. Go completely overboard for 20 minutes and then vote your anxiety levels. Day 2 is check just once or not at all for 20 minutes and then rate your anxiety levels. Now, I was certain that all the checking was going to make me feel calmer, it was going to make me feel like I'd done it. I was really wanting to do it and I did it, and by the time I go to bed I feel better. And I thought that not checking was going to be absolute hell. But the results show completely different. Constantly checking, doing it over and over again, just made me want to do it more and made my anxiety levels rise each time, and then I found it so hard to sleep. It was unbearable. I was desperate to do it more. On the days that I didn't do it and I held out, I felt anxious, of course, to begin with. But then eventually you thought, you know what, I've survived this far, don't have to do it. I went to sleep and felt so much better, and then had a better night's sleep because of it, probably because I was really, really overtired anyway. So that might help, and then seeing it in writing and thinking, wow, I'm really not doing myself any good by checking, is quite shocking to see, and it does kind of put your mind into a different perspective as well, which is always handy, and therapy was really helpful with that. Exercise 9. So this is the responsibility pie, which I'm fully aware is the worst name to name anything, but this was actually my absolute favourite and the one thing that worked for me especially. Not all of these worked for me. This one definitely did. But again, might be different for you, depends on the person. So this is basically talking about when you blame yourself for a feared future event that might happen. However, we usually give ourselves more than our fair share of blame and responsibility. This responsibility pie is one way of challenging that distorted thinking. So write down how responsible you would feel if the feared situation happened, using a percentage scale of 0% from not being responsible at all up to 100%, which is being totally responsible. So mine, for example, when I used to check outside my windows to check that I used to worry about the garage man opposite our house being like robbed at gunpoint. I used to worry about the pets being stolen. So I put, for example, somebody taking my pets in the middle of the night. If it happened, I would feel 100% responsible. Now I have to list all the other factors that might contribute to this horrible thing actually happening. My parents not locking the doors, someone actually doing the act, so the person taking the pets, someone already being in the house already, neighbours not hearing, me not hearing, and my mum and dad not hearing. So obviously the people doing it, you could just give them 100% of the pie because they're doing the crime, but you need more of the pie to spread it out, so I put them as 30% each. Then my parents not locking the doors was 20%, mum and dad and the neighbours not hearing was only 5%, and I gave myself 10% because I'm closer downstairs and I think I should hear it if somebody's breaking in. I still am partly responsible in my eyes, but I've gone down from giving myself 100% of the whole pie just down to 10%, and it sounds ridiculous because maybe that's just, it's really obvious, but seeing it written down makes you feel so much less responsible. You think, you know what, I'm only 10% and I can physically see it written down. It's like doing a sum and seeing it and thinking, okay, I can understand why I got to that answer. It made me feel like a huge weight came off my shoulders, and I feel like if you're worried about something and you write it down in that sense, it helps a huge amount. I just give it a try. I was very skeptical until I tried it. Exercise 10. This is just unhelpful thinking styles, which I'm sure 90% of people do anyway. But they're just things that if you notice yourself doing, you can avoid them now because you know about it. It is all or nothing thinking. So thinking, I'm not perfect, I have failed, or either I do it right or not at all. That's really unhelpful because you kind of should try everything. Overgeneralizing, so being like, oh, this sucks, everything is rubbish, nothing good ever happens. You're seeing a pattern based on a single event, or being overly broad in the conclusions that you draw. That's never going to be helpful. So having a mental filter, only noticing our failures but never noticing your successes. That is such a negative way to go through life, but I feel like a lot of people do it. If you notice yourself doing that, try and avoid it and see how you feel. Even just try it for a month. Just nip it in the bud every time you do it and see how you feel afterwards. Jumping to conclusions. Kind of feel like everybody does this to a certain extent. There's two different types. There's mind reading, which is imagining we know what others are thinking, or fortune telling, predicting the future. So being like, oh, I bet this is gonna happen, I bet this is gonna happen. It's just worrying, and when has worrying ever helped? It's never as bad as you think it's gonna be. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen anyway. And if you're constantly worrying about it, you're just gonna make yourself feel anxious and then not wanna go to the event or be in this situation. If you've gotta do it, you've gotta do it. Don't make it worse for yourself by panicking for months in advance before. It's never gonna help, and jumping to conclusions has never helped anybody. Catastrophizing. So this is blowing things out of proportion or shrinking things to make them seem less important. So I think I would do that is when I used to assume that just because I was alone, something really, really bad was gonna happen to me. Now, how is that a way to go through life, being constantly terrified to be on your own in the evening, when you might as well just deal with it? Emotional reasoning is another one, assuming that because you feel a certain way, we must think it's true. So say, for example, you feel embarrassed, that you feel like you're an idiot. I think most of the time that we feel something, other people don't notice. So you might do something and be like, oh God, I'm so embarrassed, I'm such an idiot. And then I know I would worry about it for the entire day, when probably other people didn't even notice. So what's the point in being embarrassed and ruining your entire day when it's really not that big a deal? Using critical words like should, must, or ought make yourself feel guilty, or feeling like you've already failed. So if you're like, oh, I should have done that, I should have done this, and then constantly reflecting on the past and thinking what you could have done, you're just gonna make yourself feel crap. It's a really unhelpful way of thinking, and it's never gonna benefit you in any sense. Labeling, so labeling yourself for other people. So calling yourself useless or calling yourself an idiot or saying you're a loser is generally gonna just make you feel negative all the time. And especially for me, when I felt so down last year, I was so teary all the time, but I was so hard on myself because I generally kept thinking just crap things about myself. You don't give yourself a break, and I feel like if you're a teenager or something, you generally feel stressed out anyway, so why make it worse for yourself than it already is? Personalization, so this is my fault. Blaming yourself or taking responsibility for something that isn't completely your fault. So this is where the responsibility pie helps, because you may feel like something's 100% your fault, but when you actually break it down, it's not all your fault, and it makes more sense to see it written down. So that one does really help. So yeah, try and avoid unhelpful thinking styles. If you notice yourself doing it, try not to do it, and then just see how you feel, and you might realise that you've actually really improved in a month or so. I think cognitive behavioural therapy really worked for me. It might work for you. As I said, just if you watch this video and you feel like, you know what, I want to try just one of those exercises and it works, you might have improved your week just a tiny bit. This is when I got discharged from therapy, and it showed my scores from the beginning. This is where the questionnaire comes in handy. You see your scores from the beginning of the time when you joined to when you've left and how much you've improved, and it's actually really interesting to see. I was showing signs of moderate depression and moderate anxiety. So on a score out of 15, I was getting 14 when I first joined, which is really bad. Obsessive Compulsive disorder, the cutoff score is 19, so if you're over 19 on the table, you have it bad. I was scoring 76, which is absolutely awful, and I'm really glad I went when I did, to be honest. It says I attended 8 appointments and 2 extra appointments, and they were conducted face-to-face. This is treatment for your obsessive compulsive disorder. In the sessions, we focused on helping you to manage the anxiety around distressing, intrusive thoughts and dropping your checking behaviours. And the outcome, the happy bit. So my depression scale reduced from 14 down to 2, which is fantastic, and I think I just generally feel better. And my anxiety scale went down from a 15 to a 4, which again is so much better. And that was a couple of months ago, so maybe now I've even improved more than then because I've been keeping it up. And my symptoms for obsessive compulsive behaviours also have reduced, and my final score is now a 46, which again is way over 19, and I still do lots of the things now. So as I said, I'm not a genius, but I do think these things definitely help, and you have to keep them up. So I went down from 76 to 46. So I was really happy with that. That's still a huge improvement, seeing as I was only getting worse week by week anyway. So yeah, I hope this video has helped you if you feel like you're suffering with any of these problems. And you can try these exercises at home. They might not all work for you, it might just be one. I didn't find all of them helpful. But then if you try one, keep it up and see how you feel. I'd love to see in the comments if anything has worked for you. And as I said, if you want to write a DM to me or something on social media, I'd be really happy to reply with an answer as helpful as I could. Or if you feel like writing it public on YouTube, I can reply something to you in the comment section. I hope it helps. So let's all try together to break the stigma of mental health, because it's not something you should be embarrassed of. I think I've finally admitted it. Also, I completely forgot to mention, because I have the absolute worst memory, there's another YouTuber who might be able to help you and you might like. Her name's Arden Rose. I'll put the link to her channel in the description. She suffers with trichotillomania. I might be pronouncing that completely wrong. If I am, I apologise. But basically she pulls her eyelashes out and her eyebrows out when she's stressed out. It's quite similar to when I used to pick my scalp when I was younger. And it's definitely worse for stress as well, and she explains it really well on her channel. So if that's something that might be an issue for you, I'd definitely check her channel out, or check it out anyway, because she's really easy to watch and seems really nice. Yeah, and she also gave me the confidence to make this video because I thought if she can talk about her problems and her issues with OCD, then I should be able to do the same and bring more awareness to the subject. So yeah, thank you, Arden. And I'll put the link to her channel in the description so you can check it out. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. And I don't know how to end this. So I'm just gonna say bye. Bye.